Hey, fifth grade, for today's Writers Workshop mini lesson, we're going to be talking about your leads, or how you start your poem. How should a free verse poem begin? I think there's really only one rule. Go ahead and turn in your ELA reference folder to page 19 if you have it. If you don't, just follow along and know that it's there for you when you're ready to refer back to it. Leads begin inside. In the words of Horace, one of the greatest lyric poets of all time, begin poems in the midst of things. Start your poems inside an experience, feeling, observation, or memory. One of the best things about writing poetry versus prose is that I don't need to establish a detailed context, all of the who, what, when, where, and why information that readers of prose require. Remember that prose is everyday writing. So like the novels that you read, your textbooks, paragraphs, just regular writing that require details and information. They require for you to directly state those things, especially if you're reading a story or a novel. You need to know who is in the story, what's happening, when it's happening, where it's happening, and why it's happening. In poetry, you don't have to do all of that. It rides on the compactness of the form, what's left out, so the reader can be as much of a creator as the writer. We learned this when we read William Carlos Williams' poems. He would give us something concrete, and then our brain and our own imagination would fill in the rest of the details. So that's one of the things that make writing poetry so much fun, because you can just jump right in. Poems ride on their immediacy, so beware of the throat-clearing preambles and setting the stage with starting a poem with background explanations of what happened leading up to the moment of the poem. Go right to the moment. So we're at the point in our year where deer season is coming up for many of you. And if you're a hunter, it's a very, very big deal. And there's a lot of things that happen before you actually go out hunting. And it seems like every year I get some kiddos who want to write about a deer hunting experience because maybe they shot this massive buck, or perhaps a massive buck happened by, but they were so freaked out and they missed the shot completely. Regardless, they find a meaningful experience that they want to explore in this situation, and they want to write a poem about it. A lot of times I see a lot of this throat clearing that the lesson's talking about. So like they might tell me what they had for breakfast and how they put on, 4 layers of clothes before they went out to the stand, and then they drove through the stand and all this stuff, and they talk about climbing into the stand, when in reality you could just start with sitting in the stand and waiting for it to happen, and then boom, the moment. So you could just start in the moment. All of those other details are probably not necessary, and they're not the stuff that they want to share with their readers in the first place. So, moving on. Let me show you a couple of student poems that begin inside, in the midst of things, as examples of what I mean. Anne's poem Journey begins inside. Read along with me. Journey. On the way home, it rained. It rained as it can only in summer, a shower that brings mosquitoes and heat, a downpour when the sky doesn't darken. It rained like needles falling from a pine tree deep in the forest, that silently, like a dream only one person has and only once. On the way home, it rained like someone somewhere needed a rainbow, and maybe they were going to get one. And I reached home, and maybe the someone was me. Anne doesn't tell us where she's coming from as she's on her way home, or who she's with, or why she needs cheering up. She begins in the midst of the experience. Do you see what I mean about immediacy? She just jumped right in, and she didn't give us all those details that were not important. Let's take another look at a student poem. This is Nat's poem. It's called Boy's Life. Follow along with me as I read. Boy's life. Somewhere out there is a boy who can bench 150 without effort, but as far as I'm concerned, it will never be me. Showing no emotion, he's the captain of the football team who won't leave the field until he's blinded by his own blood. Cheering mindlessly, he's the #1 fan of TV wrestlers who love to hear the loudest crunch. One day, he'll encounter the real world and realize what it means for a man to be strong. Nat could have started the poem by clearing his throat for a stanza or two, explaining where he's coming from. I'm small for my age, I'm not a pumped up macho man sort of guy, and I'm surrounded by a culture where male strength is measured by what I see as empty macho values. Instead, Nat goes right to the heart of the matter. Somewhere out there is a boy. This is a good technique to know for first drafts, but it's also a way of revising. After you've written a first draft of a poem and made your initial stab at getting your ideas and feelings down on the page, you may wish to go back and see if you need the first lines, maybe even the first stanza. Ask yourself, have I begun in the midst of things? Let me know if you have any observations or questions or comments about this lesson. I hope that this helps you understand that you don't have to follow some formula that you've been taught about short stories or writing when it comes to prose. With poetry, you can just jump right in. Hope you guys got that. I hope you're well. I love and miss you, and I can't wait to see you in class soon.